friends, and we meet for our last time, at least for this semester. Hopefully some of our paths will cross again in the future. You'll have to forgive me for sitting like this. I think you all know by now. I have to sit like this for my back. So we have our last session, and we'll just dive straight in. The beautiful story of Krishna and the Gopis, his beloved. So we had a sense of Vatsalya Bhav in the last lecture, the love of God to Ishvara, that big grand Ishvara, becomes a little child, a plaything in the hands of his devotees. So God surrenders to his devotees. Normally, the devotee surrenders to God, right? And that's the practice. But when you become 100% pure, 100% pure means nothing in your mind other than God, ever, all the time. Everything you do is you connected to God. When you get to that point, then God is conquered. The unconquerable one becomes conquered. Remember that phrase that the Bhagavatam loves to play with, that idea of the unconquerable one becoming conquered. Conquered how? By the love of the devotee, not by anything else, not by power, not by jnana knowledge, not by yogic virtuosity, by love, by bhakti, just like a parent becomes captured by a young child, and will play with a young child. Now we'll see who has captured the heart of God in the Krishna tradition. By whom is God captured the most intensely? And that's his beloved Gopis. This is also the part of Krishna theology that is the most commonly misunderstood. And especially when missionaries went to India, they thought it was scandalous that Krishna was dallying with the wives of other cowherd men. So we'll try to understand the theology behind that. And let's remember that, let's remember the verse in the Gita. Give me 1 second, I'm going to bring it up. Okay, I'm going to hit the pause button. Okay, so here we are. So let's just quickly bring up that Gita. And I remember when we read this, I said, pay attention to this. And when we get to the Bhagavatam, what does Krishna end the Gita after the whole Gita? After the whole text is encouraging Arjuna to do his dharma, do your dharma, but do it without attachment to the fruits. It's completely selflessly, without any thought of, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that out of it. That's been a primary teaching of the Gita. And then layered on top of that, do your dharma in the world without attachment to the fruits, and then to make that bhakti, offer it to me. And look at how does it end? Abandon all duties, take refuge in me alone. That's the final instruction. The highest, Krishna says, is the highest. Just give up everything and surrender to me, right? Fix your mind on me, the previous verse, worship me, sacrifice to me, bow down to me, you'll come to me. Abandon all duties. And of course, Krishna then hastily says, after that, don't go around. This is not for everybody, only very, very high level bhaktas, high level devotees. And that's what we're going to see with the Gopis. Gopis are considered the highest of all bhaktas. Krishna says here in the Gita, don't go around, this should not be spoken of by you to anyone without austerity. Don't go around saying this to people. They'll think, oh, that's great. God said we could give up our duties. Okay, let's give up our duties, go hang out on the beach. No, nor to one who is up devotion. This is only a message for the bhaktas, not for anybody else. Nor to one who doesn't render service. All right, so this is not an excuse to turn our back on our dharmas to our family and our society. Right? Okay? Nor to one who speaks evil of me, those who hate God, and so forth. Okay, but nonetheless, so he's very quick to add all of this. This is only this is an option only for the highest level of devotee, of bhakta, right? What's that? Abandon all duties. Now we're going to see what that looks like in the life of the Gopis. And you've probably seen, if you've ever been to an Indian restaurant or an Indian cultural center, you may have seen a sort of a circle of girls with a blue figure next to them in the circle dance. So that's Krishna with the Gopis. Okay, if you're from Gujarat, you do this, once a year. What's it called? When you do it with the sticks, forget the name. It's called beautiful. We've done it on Ruckus. sometimes the Hindu students get it together and they do the, whatever it's called, it's a Gujarati enactment of this ancient Leela from the Bhagavatam. So let's see how it starts. The Gopi chapter starts, we know all of the Leelas are in book 10, chapter 29. So Shuka, remember, the sage, the naked sage who's talking to Parikshit, the king, fasting to death. He starts now this new section about the Gopis. Even Bhagavan, God himself, beholding those nights with autumnal jasmine flowers blossoming. So now we know it's going to be a romantic scene. In the poetic tradition, jasmine, full moon, these are indicators of a romantic scene, whether it's a Leela of Krishna or a secular play. But there's some indicators in drama that signal something about the scene that's to follow. So just like we have, for example, if it's a horror movie, we have a horror, we have this sort of certain type of music that's discordant and ghastly. So there are indicators, background indicators of what's about to take place. So here, if it's going to be love, full moon, malika flowers. So Bhagavan called upon his divine power of Yoga Maya. You know what that is? Make sure you do before you do the test. It's the power by which God covers his majesty so that his beloved bhaktas can approach him. And they can approach him in different ways. We saw maternal love. Now we're going to see love of a lover to a beloved. And Bhagavan turned his thoughts towards enjoying love. At that time, the moon, king of the constellation, arose in the east, covering the face of the heavens with its copper-colored soothing rays. This is beautiful poetry, by the way. Right? This is not like the Nyaya, the writings of Nyaya and the sort of Sankhya, that dense stuff. Beautiful, because God is beautiful. So if you're arguing philosophy, you have to use a certain kind of philosophical language, which is terse and to the point and succinct and precise. That's philosophical language, the sutra. But now we're in the realm of those who accept that there is a Bhagavan, right? They don't need to argue about it. They don't need to, even read the Vedanta anymore. They are bhaktas. They've done all that work. Now they've accepted Bhagavan, and in this tradition in the form of Krishna. So now they want to glorify the beloved Ishvara with the most exquisite writing. And that's what Indian aesthetics is all about. Art, architecture. What do you think all that's about? So look at what the temple engravings, the statuary, the paintings, the music. It's all dedicated to some form of Ishvara. What do you do when you go to a temple? Beautiful temples with deities inside, and then trained musicians offering their music, dances. That's where dance comes from. A lot of dance forms come out of the temple traditions. Who were they dancing for? The pleasure of Bhagavan in the form of the deity, and so on. Okay, so if you're a poet, everyone remember Bhakti is about offering your skill set to Bhagavan. So if you're a theologian, okay, you go debate the Buddhists, and you debate and say, yes, there is a Bhagavan, and we will defend that idea. But if you're an artist, you paint beautiful pictures. And if you're a poet, you try to write exquisite literature, which is what this is. If you're a dancer, then you offer your dance. A lot of that dance in Indian culture is reenactment, especially this, the Gopi Leela. That's very, very prominently represented in dance. Okay, so you get the point. So it's lovely literature. Look, the moon, king of the constellations, arose in the east, covering the face of the heavens with its copper-colored soothing rays, right? Because the sun is setting. So the moon is copper-colored from the last little bit of the sun as it sets. And it wiped away the cares of the onlookers, the moon does, like a lover. So these are all indicators that this scene that is about to unfold is one of love, like an amorous love. Like a lover who has been absent for a long time wipes away the cares of his beloved. So the moon is wiping away the cares of those who, you look at the full moon, you think how wonderful. And for that moment, the full moon, and you're looking at it, and for that moment, all your cares vanish because you're engaged in the wonders of nature. So Krishna is going to be like that. Seeing that full disk, herald of the white night lilies, as one type of lily, that, which is really a lotus. There are many types of lotuses, and most of them open in the day, but one opens at night. So if you know, if there are night lilies, you know it's, again, these are all indicators of an amorous scene. Okay, these are all signs. If someone is educated in Indian literary aesthetics, poetic conventions, they recognize these signs, right? Full moon, jasmine, night lilies, all point to a love scene. That's what's going to unfold. But now with God, Ishvara. So seeing all that, like the its splendor, the splendor of that full moon, like the face of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, the spouse of Vishnu Narayana, and seeing the forest colored by its silky rays. Krishna's in the forest, in this beautiful forest. Remember the first, when the whole of nature welcomed Krishna when he incarnated, when he took birth. All the clouds rumbled, the ocean, constellations arranged themselves in the best possible way. Well, now all of nature is supporting Krishna's Leela. They're contributing. This is bhakti. You contribute the best you have and you offer it to God. So what's the best the moon has? A full moon, right? What's with maybe some streaks of red? Beautiful. Wind, what can the wind do? Just blow just perfectly, so it's not cold, but it's refreshing, carrying the sense of the fragrance of flowers. All of nature, it's offering its best. And what's the message? That's what we should be doing if we're bhaktas, offering our very best skill set in the service and as an offering to Bhagavan. Okay, so seeing all of this, Krishna played his flute. Krishna plays the flute. Why? You say why? Well, why not? God can do it. You don't ask why when it comes to God. God can do it. God wants to play a flute, he'll play a flute. And that's what he plays, right? Sarasvati plays, you know, a veena, and some, you know, Shiva has his tambura. So these are the Ishvara. They enjoy the fullness of their creations. They enjoy the fullness of sound and sights and smells and all possible sensory experiences and their fullness. So he played his flute. Here we are, capturing the hearts of the beautiful-eyed women. Okay, Gopis. Remember, Gopa are the men and Gopi are the females. The music aroused kama, desire, amorous desire. And when they heard Krishna's flute, the women of Vraj, enchanted by Krishna, they're all in love with Krishna. Remember, anybody who's in the Leela is in love with God 100% and has practiced bhakti yoga for many lifetimes. Always keep that in mind, my friends. When they heard it, the women of Vraj, enchanted by Krishna, came to their lover, left their homes and went out to the forest. Because Krishna they heard his flute. Immediately, it's like the call of God. Think of it that way. Their earrings swinging in their haste. And unknown to one another, they didn't know that the other gopis are also listening to the flute. They're all rushing out to the forest. By the way, we won't read it in this passage, but when Krishna dances with them, each gopi has her own Krishna. And therefore, it's not like all of these gopis in one male. All of them have their own. In other words, everyone has their own personal relationship with God. So out they go, rushing out to be with Krishna, unknown to one another. And look, what did we just read? Let's go back. Chapter 18, abandoning all duties, take refuge in me alone. That's the ending of the Gita. Well, this picks up where the Gita leaves off. Krishna doesn't tell us what this looks like. What does that mean, abandon all duties? Well, here's what it means for the gopis. Look, some who were milking cows, their dharma, they were doing their dharma, abandoned the milking. They gave up their dharma. Why? And approached eagerly to be with God. Okay. Others had put milk on the fire. How long does it take to, you hear the flute, take the milk off and go, then run out? No. When you hit the flute of the call of God, you leave everything. So others had put milk on the fire, but then came without even removing the milk or the cakes from the oven. How long? 10 seconds to remove that. How about this? Others interrupted serving food, feeding their baby's milk. What mother who's nursing the child would just dump the child and run off? Well, the gopis would. The gopis would to be with Krishna. Let's go back. Abandoning all duties. What is a more intimate, important duty than the mother nursing a child? Hey, this is being with God in the Bhakti tradition. Why? Because that's an eternal dharma, my friends. You're only going to be a mother you're only going to nurse your child for a year or two. And eventually you get old and die. And then what? Next life, that child's not going to be your child. You're going to be in some other family with some other parents and some other children if you get married. These are all bodily dharmas. This is eternal. Remember, what was Parikshit's question at the beginning? What is the dharma of one about to die? All these other dharmas are useless. What, in other words, what's the dharma of the soul? And in the Bhagavatam, it's to be with God. So they interrupted serving food. Their husbands are like, where are you going? Where are you going? The Gopis run. They stop serving their husbands and run out the door. They stopped feeding their babies milk and attending their husbands. Still others were eating, but left their food. Wow, now we're getting a sense of what giving up dharma means. Others were putting on makeup, washing, or applying mascara to their eyes. They all went to be near Krishna. Their clothes and ornaments in disarray. They didn't even properly finish dressing. That's another dharma, getting dressed. There's so many dharmas. How about getting dressed properly? No. Heard the flute, whatever stage of dress they were in, out the door to be with Krishna. How so? Their hearts have been stolen by Govinda. They didn't turn back when their husbands, their fathers, their brothers and relatives tried to prevent them. They tried to stop them. Where are you going? Finish serving the food. No, straight out, push everybody aside, out the door. This is what Sarva Dharman Parityagya. Here it is, the Sanskrit. Look, Sarva, let's blow it up. Sarva Dharman Parityagya. Give up all dharma. Mam ekam sharanam praja. To me alone, refuge take. Take refuge to me alone. My friends, memorize it if you wish to understand the Gopis. Okay? And if you wish to understand why is it that the Krishna tradition says that the Gopis are the highest of all embodied beings, all yogis, all bhaktas, the Gopis are the highest of everybody. Male Brahmins, nothing compared to the Gopis. Big forest yogis with their meditation, nothing compared to the Gopis. Here. And so they try to stop them. Some Gopis, not being able to find a way to leave, because they were blocked physically, right? Husbands stopped them. They remained at home and thought of Krishna with eyes closed. They said, okay, you've stopped our bodies. We're going to keep going in our minds. Can't stop our minds. You can't get into our heads. Bhakti's all in the head. It's in the mind. They thought of Krishna with eyes closed, completely absorbed in meditation. Not on the Atman, my friends. No. Bhakti is meditation on Bhagavan. Now, what happens what happens to them? Well, their karma for the impious deeds was destroyed, right? Because of this meditation, that instantly, and so intense was their meditation on God, all their karma is destroyed by the intense and intolerable pain of separation from their lover. Because they were separated from him, that intense meditation destroys all their karma, good and bad, including, look, their auspicious deeds were also diminished or destroyed by complete fulfillment resulting from the intimate contact with the Chuta. And they obtain through meditation now. So their bodies are stopped by the relatives. Minds are intensely meditating. The minds are not going to stop thinking about Krishna just because their bodies were stopped. So all the karma is destroyed. Why? Because wherever Krishna is, there can be no impurity. Well, we didn't read some of those leelas that I'm thinking of the other course, but sometimes Krishna kills demons, right? And they all get liberated because they were touched by God. So even though they're demons, they hate that, one of them, Putana, right? She's a devourer of babies. She goes around, she infanticide, she feeds off babies. She's a real, if that's not demoniac, what is? Gets killed by Krishna and instantly liberated because she's touched by God. See? So anyway, so what to speak of the Gopis? All their karma is destroyed. And let's skip all this. Nope. Here, this is the bit. So because where we left off. Their bondage was destroyed, bondage of karma, and they immediately left their bodies made of the gunas. In other words, the husbands and their relatives stopped their physical bodies from going to the forest to be with Krishna when they heard the flute. So they kept going in their subtle body, in their mental body, because there's three bodies. There's the Atman, which is the real self, and then there's the subtle body. We haven't spoken much about that. In fact, we haven't spoken about that at all, but just take it from me. For now, they kept going in their subtle, their psychic bodies, and they just left the gross bodies behind. They said, okay, you're stopping our gross bodies, you're not stopping us. And they kept going. That's what love of God looks like. That's why the gopis are the highest bhaktas. So they get to Krishna. The Lord, we'll jump to verse 17. The Lord saw that the women of Raj had arrived in his presence. Being the best of speakers, he addressed them, captivating them with the charm of his words. So the gopis are all there now in the forest. And Krishna says, welcome. Now he's going to tease them a little bit, okay? So I'll just give you a little bit of a heads up. He's going to test their devotion. He goes, welcome, you're most fortunate. What can I do to please you? Of course he knows. What can I do? Is everything well in Braj? He's just sort of this superficial chit-chat conversation. Everything well in Braj? Tell me the purpose of your coming, he says. And he goes on. This fear, you shouldn't be out here in the forest. Look, this fearsome night is frequented by ferocious creatures. Think of the Bengal tigers. Of course, that's in Bengal, but I mean, in ancient India, there would have been tigers all over all the forests. Ferocious creatures, wolves up in the Himalayas, and other kinds of wild animals. So go back to Vraj, O slender-waisted ones. This place is not fit for women at night by yourselves. And your mothers and fathers and sons and brothers and husbands are worried because they can't find you. You just ran out the door. Do not cause your relatives concern. You've seen the forest. Like now he's going to pretend that they just came to the forest to have a look at the full moon. He's testing their bhakti and being playful. Oh, maybe you've come out. Oh, you've seen the forest adorned with flowers colored by the rays of the full moon and made beautiful by the blossoms of the trees, quivering playfully in the breeze of the Yamuna River. Okay, you came out, had a little Kodak moment. You brought your cell phones, took some shots, took some photographs. So don't go back home. Therefore, hurry now to the cow pen and serve your husbands. You're chaste ladies. You shouldn't be out in the forest at night with another man. You're chaste, Vedic ladies. And the babies and calves are crying. Go back and do your dharma. He's telling them to go back and do their dharma, right? In the Gita here, he says, give it all up. Now he's going to test them. He said, oh, go back and do your dharma. Here you come. Okay, you had a nice little view of the full moon. And then he goes, oh, perhaps your hearts are captivated and you have come out of love for me. So now he said, well, maybe you've come because you love God, you love me. This is commendable of you. Living beings delight in me. God doesn't have to be modest, by the way. He is God. He is the supreme. He doesn't have to pretend not to be. He's telling everyone in the Gita, love me, love me, love me. I'll liberate you. So he's saying, this is commendable. Living beings delight in me. Now he starts preaching Dharma to them. Right, back to the Gita. Don't forget where he ends up. Give it up, Dharma. But here, he starts preaching at them. The highest Dharma of a woman is to serve her husband faithfully, to ensure the well-being of her relatives, and to nourish her children, right? And by the way, the opposite is true. The husband should also serve the wife, but we're talking about the gopis here. What's the highest Dharma? A husband who is not a sinner, even though if he's a bad character, he's ill-fated, bad luck, old or dull-headed or sick or poor, he shouldn't be abandoned by women who desire to attain heaven, the celestial realm. If he's a sinner, that's another thing. But if he's not, I mean, even we would agree, right? If you marry someone and they get old or they're not they're not very smart or they get sick or they're poor, you shouldn't just dump them. That wouldn't I think most cultures would agree with that. They shouldn't be abandoned by women. Without exception, the adultery, right? Because remember, they're going to be with Krishna. They left their husband. That's, from a Dharma point of view, that's adultery. Even though he's God and those categories don't count for him, he's kind of pretending that he's just a mortal. So he says, without exception, the adultery of a woman of good birth doesn't lead to heaven. Remember, this heaven is the celestial realm. Adultery is scandalous. People find out. Fear-laden, you're always worrying that people will capture it. You know, in conservative India, even today, in traditional India, if a woman has a, you know, in a village India or a small town India, in many conservative pockets of India, if a woman has an affair, then she'll get thrown out of the village. And then what? Go to the next village and they'll say, well, what are you doing all alone here? Well, what did you get up to? She might end up in the red light district of Bombay. So it's a risky thing. And the Gopis didn't even enter their minds it was risky. No, they wanted to be with God, and that was it. It's fear-laden, it's worthless. What do you get out of it? If you have an affair, a few moments, pleasure, and all, we'll look at the price you have to pay. Scandalous, fear-laden, fraught with difficulty. You have to figure out how to, you know, arrange a rendezvous, a liaison. And it's abhorrent, and you get bad karma, and you get all the bad consequences. So now he's preaching Dharma to them. And he says, look, love for me, you don't have to be physically with me. So what love for me comes from hearing about me. You just hear about me, like we're doing, read the stories, seeing me. That the commentators take that to be the deity, because God can enter into the deity. God can enter into anything. Just like Catholics say, when you take Holy Communion, that's not just a wafer of flour and water, it's transubstantiated. It's the body and blood of Christ. So this idea that divinity can pervade matter, so is the idea behind the Hindu deity in a temple, that it's not a stone or a statue or a representation. Ishvara can enter. Why not? Ishvara can enter into anything. Can't say Ishvara can't do something. So love for me comes from hearing about me, seeing me, meditating on me, and reciting my glories, not in this way by physical proximity. Therefore return to your homes. Now God is directly instructing them, go back home and do your Dharma. Imagine if God, you know, in any theistic tradition, God directly tells you to do something. Aren't you supposed to do that? Not if you're a gopi. They're going to say, no, we're not going anywhere. Hearing Govinda speak these unwelcome words, these words of Dharma, or go back, you know, just meditate on me at home. That's how you get love. Unwelcome words. They don't want to hear this. The dejected gopis had their aspirations dashed and were inconsolable in their distress. Krishna just broken their hearts. They stood silent. Notice they're not moving. They're not going back. Oh no, that's not an option for the gopis. They're going to stay right there. It doesn't matter what Krishna says. They stood silently, their red bimba fruit-colored lips faded by their sighs, and the vermilion powder on their breasts smeared by the mascara carried by their tears. It's beautiful poetry, right? They're crying. And then they have black mascara. So the water is carrying the black onto the vermilion. It's kind of an ochre colored on their breasts. So this it's a beautiful, it's colorful, it's aesthetically beautiful prose. Casting down their faces out of sorrow and scratching the ground with their feet. Remember, this is all allowing us to get into the expertise of the poet. In any literary tradition of the world, a good writer is someone that really gets you inside the head of the character. If you can write a good movie for that, if you can really identify with the character, then that artist or that filmmaker or that author or that poet has been expert. So then, you know, look at this. So you can imagine casting down their faces out of sorrow and scratching the ground with their feet. They can't talk. And they're so upset, they just scratch the ground with their feet. They're not moving. They were weighed down by extreme unhappiness. Wiping their eyes and having checked their tears somewhat, the gopis spoke to Krishna, their beloved, with voices faltering with agitation. They were utterly devoted and had sacrificed all desires for his sake. They'd given up their husbands, even nursing their babies, everything. They hadn't even taken the milk off the stove. But he had replied to them as if he were anything but their beloved. He had replied to them in this kind of, oh, well, you know, okay, you've come out to see me, very nice, and I go back home. He's testing them. And he's also showing us, the reader, what this I know I'm repeating myself. This looks like abandoning all duties, take refuge in me. I shall liberate you from all evils. You won't be getting any bad karma because you left your husbands or your families. This is what it looks like in the Gopi tradition. So now they're chastising God. They're saying, you, the knower of Dharma, right? Oh, wait, here. You shouldn't speak to us in such a heartless fashion, O Lord. Renouncing all enjoyment of the senses, we are devoted to the soles of your feet. We've given up everything to be with you. Reciprocate, you obstinate one. Imagine talking to God like that. I have a t-shirt. Somebody made me a t-shirt. Reciprocate, you obstinate one. It's upstairs. I just love it. You would be saying that to Narayana or Vishnu or Kali or Durga, but in Krishna Lila, covered by Yoga Maya, this is exactly what you do say. You are, there's no fear, there's only intimacy. And now they feel rejected by their beloved, and they're going to give him a piece of their mind. Reciprocate, you obstinate one. Just as the Lord, the original being, they don't know that he is the Lord, the original being. Remember, Yoga Maya, that's the job of Yoga Maya. Just as the Lord, the original being, reciprocates with those who desire liberation. Do not reject us. In Patanjali, the role of Ishvara, remember, is to bestow liberation. You, the knower of Dharma, so you are pontificating about Dharma, and sometimes they do know who he is, and sometimes they don't. But even when they know he's God, there's no majesty there. It's interesting, sometimes they seem to go in and out of awareness of the fact that he is Bhagavan, with God with a big G, but there's no fear or majesty or anything like that. You have declared that the occupational dharma of women, right in the previous verses, Krishna says, consists of attending to friends, husbands, and children, right? Didn't he say that up here? Look, he said up here, look, the highest dharma of a woman is to serve a husband, to ensure the well-being of relatives, and to nourish children. So they just say, here, you, the knower of Dharma, have declared that the occupational Dharma of women consists of attending to friends, husbands, and children. Then let this be our Dharma when it comes to you. Well, if that's our Dharma to them, let it be our Dharma to you then, to serve you, to attend to you. You, the source of this advice, O Lord, are, after all, you are the soul within all relatives. In other words, you're telling us to serve the bodies of our relatives, after all, our husbands and children, they're just bodies. Inside are Atmans, and those Atmans are sparks of you. So why, instead of serving these bodies, which are external and temporary and related to this life only, why don't we serve you directly, since you are the origin of the souls who are within our family? See the logic? God, the Atmans are all like sparks of God, and then they take birth in these bodies and their relationships like husband, wife. And they're saying, you're telling us to serve the bodies. Well, we're going to serve you in the form of the soul that are within the bodies. In other words, we're just going to serve you directly. So let this be our Dharma when it comes to you, the source of this advice, O Lord. After all, you are all the soul within all relatives. Indeed, you're the most dear of all embodied beings. They're all Gopis. You're the eternal beloved, O soul of all. And so the learned place their affection in you. Those who are learned and know that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, and the Gita says, after many lives, Bahunam Janmanamante Gyanavam Mam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Gita, after many births, a wise person knows you're everything. Vasudeva is everything. Krishna is another name for Krishna. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a soul is rare. Therefore, O Supreme Lord, be pleased with us. Oh no, look what they say here. What is the use of husbands and children who simply cause problems? I want to make another t-shirt with that one. Isn't that funny? What's the point of these husbands and children? Oh, just make problem. Kids are always, think of all the, well, you're young students, but when you get a bit older and look back and you think, oh my God, what did I put my parents through? All the bills they have to pay, all the nonsense we make our parents put up with when we go through our little phases and our little, our little dramas. So what's the use of husband and children who simply cause problems? Therefore, O Supreme Lord, be pleased with us. Do not dash our hopes. They've been sustained by you for such a long time. You know, all we do is just meditate on you all day, 24 hours now, and then you play the flute, and so we followed the sound of your flute. Now you want to send us back home? Our hearts, which were absorbed in our households, right, our dharma, right, have been stolen away with ease by you. You easily stolen our hearts from our dharmas, as have our hands from domestic chores. And here they say, our feet cannot move one step from the soles of your lotus feet. We're not going anywhere. You can directly instruct us to go home. We are not going. Such is the intensity of their love. Such is the lack of formality that Yogamaya allows to create this intimacy with that Ishvara we've been discussing all semester, my friends. I'm so glad we end on this beautiful note with the Gopis. Our feet cannot move one step from the soles of your lotus feet. How can we go to Vraj? How can we go when you're here in the forest? We're not going back there without you when you're here. And besides, what would we do there? What do you think we're going to do there? Go back, wash the dishes? Rather than be with God in the forest? No way. Oh, beloved, pour the nectar of your lips on the fire dwelling in our hearts. In other words, they want to kiss him, and this is amorous love. This is the love of a beloved, a lover to a beloved. Pour the nectar of your lips on the fire dwelling in our hearts, which has been kindled by your musical harmonies, your glances, and your smiles. In other words, they love Krishna physically. He's the most gorgeous male. So their love has been kindled by, well, the flute playing, but his glances, his beautiful eyes, his smiles. He says, if you do not kiss us, pour the nectar of your lips on the fire dwelling in our hearts, which means kiss us, your lips. If you don't, we will traverse the path to your feet through meditations, our bodies consumed by the fire born of separation. We're going to leave our bodies right here, and you'll be responsible for our deaths. We'll leave our bodies and we'll come to you in our subtle bodies. If you keep on this telling us to go back in our physical bodies, go back home and do our dharmas, but then we're going to leave our bodies right here, and you'll be responsible. You'll be a murderer. This is how much they love Krishna. And they're outwitting him. They're out philosophizing God. How about that? And they're simple, uneducated cowherd girls, can't speak Sanskrit, nothing, never read Vedanta Sutra, never read an Upanishad. All they've grown up milking the cows, no schools, no education. And they're the highest of all bhaktas. Bhakti's got nothing to do with learning and knowledge and ego, my friends. It has to do with what the Gopis are demonstrating. Just pure love. Lotus-eyed Krishna, you are dear to the forest-dwelling hermits, the yogis in the forest looking for God. Somewhere, where or other, for a moment, we providentially touch the soles of your feet. In other words, somehow or other, we develop an attraction for you. How does one become a bhakta in the bhakti tradition? Somehow or other, one hears about God or runs into a great bhakta and becomes inspired. That's why we honor that's why we honor our teachers in all traditions. Actually, there has to be a first samskara. An attraction has to come from the outside. Just like if you never had Ben and Jerry ice cream, and you have to hear about it from someone or walk past or see it you have to see it in the supermarket, and you have to see all Ben and Jerry ice cream and think, oh, that looks nice. It has to be a first time when you encounter it or somebody tells you about it. It's the same with bhakti. There has to be a first time when you hear about God, Krishna, or you meet somebody that speaks of Krishna, and that first samskara goes in. So somehow or other, for a moment, all it takes is a moment to hear. Someone says to you, oh, this incredible Ben and Jerry ice cream, it's the best ever, it's got whatever. You just for a moment, and then it stays in your mind. You think, well, that sounded really good. And the next time in your supermarket, you look out for it. That's what advertising is, right? They give you 1 minute on TV and you try to plant that samskara. It's the same with bhakti. What it takes is a moment to hear about God in this amazing manifestation of Krishna. So somehow or other, they're not in this life, some past life, they can't remember their past lives. So somehow or other, for a moment, we providentially touched the soles of your feet, which belong to the goddess of fortune, meaning we somehow or other heard about you or came and received our first samskara of awareness and knowledge about you. Alas, from that moment, instantly enamored of you, we immediately fell in love with you. We became incapable of remaining in the presence of any other man. We gave you our hearts, like the great 16th century Mirabai, great Bhakta Rajasthani princess. When she was young, she gave her heart to Krishna in the form of a deity. And that was it. Later on, there was an arranged marriage, and they tried to marry her off to a Rajasthani prince, and she refused to consummate the marriage. She went through it, externally as a dharma, refused to consummate it, because she in her mind, as a little girl, she married Krishna. And there's a beautiful story. You can check out Mirabai's story, Meera. And then the prince tried, they tried to kill her, all kinds of things, but she wasn't budging. So that's a 16th century narrative, but we would call it hagiography. So, look, let's skip that verse. It is you who banish distress. Therefore, be compassionate to us. In the desire to worship you, we have given up our homes and arrived at the soles of your feet. Allow us, whose hearts are burning with intense desire, but this is good desire, remember? This is desire for God. Bad desire is the desire for the objects of the world. That's what keeps us caught up in samsara. That's what generates karma. The desire for God frees one from the bonds of karma in the world. So the intense desire born from your beautiful smiles and glances. In other words, they're in love with God as just a gorgeous male. To be your servants. In other words, if you love someone, you serve them, right? Love is service. If you love someone, you want to do things to please that person. So that's service. We have gazed on your, see how amorous this is about God as a gorgeous male. The previous Leela with Yashoda, God is an adorable little child being mischievous and naughty and playful and stealing butter. Different kind of love. But there's still the heart is captured, but in a maternal way. The whole point of bhakti is that you're captured by God in some way or another. Well, the gopis are captured by God as a gorgeous male. Why not? God has all qualities. You can be captured by any of the qualities. So we've gazed on your face covered with curls. Look how, they're describing him physically. They're in love with his features and his physique, with its smiles and glances, and on your honeyed lips placed between your cheeks, made beautiful with earrings. And we have beheld your two strong arms, right? I mean, obviously God has a perfect physique, pecs and all of that. So God has a form, can manifest form, and it's not a prakritic form, not made of flesh and blood in the Bhagavatam. It's pure spiritual Brahman form. We beheld your two strong arms, which bestow fearlessness, and your chest, which is the exclusive delight of the goddess of fortune. It keeps referring to the goddess of fortune, the consort of Vishnu. After this, we have become your servants. We've dedicated our lives to you. Dear Krishna, what woman in the three worlds would not stray from the behavior proper to Aryans? The Aryans are those who follow Vedic culture. I know that term has now been appropriated since the German ideology of the late 19th century, 20th century. The term Aryan was taken away from India, and it became a racist nationalist term. But its actual real meaning is a gentleman and a gentle lady, ladies and gentlemen who follow the sort of high standards of Vedic culture. So what woman in the three worlds would not stray from the proper behavior to Aryans, right? Proper behavior is you don't go to the forest to be with a male, but who would not stray from that when thrown into turmoil by the melodies of your flute, which vibrates harmoniously? And what woman would not stray after seeing this, your form, which brings good fortune to the three worlds? He's gorgeous. God has got to be all beautiful, my friends. He's all knowing, he's all powerful, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient. Well, how about all beautiful? Well, what does that mean? Well, this is what it means in the Krishna tradition. He's gorgeous to look at, not just gorgeous, but stunningly, that you just, faint if you saw God, the beauty. Your form, which brings good fortune to the three worlds and causes the hair of cows, birds, trees, and deer to stand on end with bliss. Remember the maternal bhav, physiological symptoms, breasts leak milk. That's a sign of the maternal love. Well, this is another sign of love. Your hair stands on end because that love just blows your circuits. Your physiology just freaks out, and you cry, and your hair stands on end, and there's all your goosebumps, and all kinds of physiological symptoms. And even not just the humans, it causes the hair of cows, birds, even trees, that their leaves just bristle in ecstasy when Krishna touches them. This is what happens when God enters the world, my friends, in the Krishna tradition. And deer to stand on end with bliss, with this bliss of which, of course, God is all blissful, is all everything, including all blissful. So here they seem to know that he's God, but it doesn't mean anything to them. They don't really, because of Yoga Maya. So it is clear that you've accepted birth to remove the tribulations and fears of Braj, just as the Lord, the primeval person, actually here they don't know it. Again, they don't know it. They refer to this abstract Ishvara without realizing that that's Krishna himself. Just like the Lord, the primeval person protects the denizens of heaven. Therefore, since you are the friend of the afflicted, place your lotus hands on the burning breasts. They want him as a lover. Yashoda gave him her breasts to nurse him. It's a different use of the breasts in a maternal, to express maternal love. But now the breasts of these are young gopis. Yashoda is obviously his mother. Now those breasts, they want to use them in an amorous relationship with God. So place your lotus hands on the burning breasts and heads of your servants. Excuse me a second. I just need to. Sorry about that. Let's get back to this. So Shuka says, now we're back. Now back to the banks of the Ganga. Remember, Shuka is reciting all this to Parikshit. So now Shuka says that the master of the masters of yoga, right? That's Krishna. He's the master of the masters of yoga, the great, great meditators, great liberated beings. But they are surrendering their minds to Ishvara. Remember Patanjali. So he's the master of the masters of yoga. Hearing their despairing words, I wouldn't say laughed. That sounds a bit callous, but he smiled. And here he engaged in amorous pleasures with them. So he said, in other words, God satisfies whatever desires we have. And in bhakti, those who desire to adore him and love him and interact with him as a baby, he takes the form of a baby. Those who desire to worship him as a friend, which we didn't have quite enough time to look at the friendship lila, which is my personal preferred bhav. God is an equal friend, as a 5 or 6 year old little cowherd boy going out with his friends, the Gopis. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to look at that. But if you're interested in those leelas, I can email me, and I'll send you a couple of leelas in that bhav. Their bhav is different. The Gopis, they want to love him as a gorgeous male. So God satisfies that. So engage in amorous pleasures with them from kindness, from love, even though his satisfaction is self-contained. God doesn't need anything. Otherwise he'd be incomplete. So when God reciprocates with his devotees, is to please his devotees. God is completely self-contained, self-complete, self-fulfilled, Aptarama. Krishna, because that's a criticism. Oh, if God is complete, why does he need to go out and make love to the gopis to find his pleasure? So that would be an opposing point of view, the Purva Paksha. So therefore, that's a Purva Paksha embedded in that. So therefore, the author is predicting or preempting that Purva Paksha by saying, by the way, he's self-contained. He's not doing this because he's lacking something. He's doing this out of love for his bhaktas. God is love. What is love? It's a two-way street. The beloved wants to please the lover, and the lover wants to please the beloved. So Krishna, the infallible one, whose conduct is upright, right? He's not adharmic, he's beyond all rules of dharma. Shone forth with the assembled gopis, who were dazzling with jasmine teeth and broad smiles. Now they're happy, now they're smiling, now their beloved has accepted them. He tested them. He also wants to show us, the whole, the world, what love of God looks like, that it transcends dharma. He wants to illustrate this first love. Final parting words of the Gita: abandon all dharmas, take refuge in me alone. That's what they did. They abandoned even their own children. So, as the gopis' face blossomed with the glances of their beloved, Krishna appeared like the moon surrounded by stars. And then, and in the next chapter, you'll see that he manifests a separate Krishna for each gopi. Praised in song, so they're all praising him in song, and then he's praising them and singing loudly himself. It's reciprocal. The Lord of hundreds of women, because there are hundreds of gopis there. And again, remember, each of them has, it's not like one male and hundreds of women, they all have their own Krishna. Wearing a garland of Jayanti flowers, frolicked in the forest, making it beautiful. So they engaged in love making. Why not? What's wrong with, God is beyond all. God reciprocates again with his bhaktas in whatever way they wish. Mother wants to nurse him, he accepts the breast of the mother and drinks her milk. Friends want to wrestle with him. We didn't look at that bath, but so he wrestles with them and he lets them win. He lets them wrestle him to the ground. Gopis want to love him through sensual contact. So to please them, he engages in that. So he frolicked in the forest, making it beautiful. Okay. Accompanied by the gopis, Krishna approached the bank of the Yamuna River. Cool sand was swept by a wind bearing the scent of the kumada flowers and refreshing from its contact with the waves. So now the wind is contributing to the wind is serving God and the gopis by providing, their love making. So they need to, some air, some to cool down a bit. So the wind provides that service. Scented air, lovely fragrance of flowers, and refreshing from its contact with the waves. So the wind blows over the Yamuna waves and brings it, maybe some droplets of water to cool everyone down. Arousing karma, this is desire, in the young women of Vraj with jokes, right? Like lovers joke with each other, tease each other, smiles and glances, playfully scratching their breasts. So this is, this is sensual. Their breast girdles thighs. So this is as graphic as it gets. It doesn't get more graphic than this in terms of the details of lovemaking, but some of the secondary literature, that the commentaries get very graphic. But the Bhagavatam itself, it's a very conservative text. That's as far as it goes. He scratched their thighs, their breasts, their girdles, their thighs, their hair and hands with his nails, and embracing them with outstretched arms, he gave them pleasure. And that's as far as it goes in the details of their lovemaking. But again, you can read the Gita Govinda if anyone doesn't have a. Oh no, you're not doing papers in this course. I'm thinking of the other course. All right, so I'm. You can read I think you have to read these chapters for your assignment, and I'll leave it there. And I hope you've enjoyed the course. So we started off with the Upanishads, the earliest philosophical, not really philosophical texts, but that's where we find, let's put it this way, proto-early philosophy. And we looked at our courses, of course, God in Indian philosophy. We found Brahman, and Brahman is the cause of the universe. So we looked at God as the intelligent cause behind the universe. So that's how the Upanishads are then. All right, there's no Shiva or Krishna or gopis in the Upanishads. They're just establishing a very foundational truth about God. And that foundational truth is that, or a basic truth about God, that God is the intelligence behind the universe, which in modern scientific terms would be intelligent design. Those who argue that there must be intelligence It's the fact that the universe is designed, that all the atoms and forces came together to produce this magnificent world. There must be intelligence behind it. There's no way that would have happened by accident. So there must be intelligence. Then that's all. That's all you can establish. You can make an inference that can't have happened by chance. So that's the Vedanta position. Verse 5, the first 5 of the Vedanta Sutra. Ikshate, right? The second, Janmadya Shayataha, that Brahman is that from which creation comes. Shastrayonitvat, it's known by the scripture. Someone, something. Scripture is consistent, and it is Ikshater, Sutra 5, it's intelligent. So we looked at that. Then we looked at the Vedantins, debating those who don't accept intelligence behind the universe. So we looked at Shankara and Vachaspati engaging Sankhya, right? This is all part of our course. So no point talking about Krishna as God if someone doesn't even accept God in the first place. First, you have to establish who God is, that there is a God, that there is an intelligent being. Then you can discuss, well, how can we know more? Is that all? We just know there's intelligence, or can we know more? Remember, Ramanuja says, through logic, you can only know there's an intelligent being. You can't know the nature of the intelligent being, only through revelation. And that's what the Bhagavatam is considered to be. It's considered to be, starts up in the beginning, God revealing himself, and not just revealing himself, but entering into the world of men and women, covering his majesty and engaging and showing what love of God looks like. So then we looked at the Vedantins. We looked at Dusty's book. And then because there's a course on Ishvara, we have to also look at those who oppose Ishvara, and they had some powerful arguments. We looked at 5 different sets of arguments from the Buddhists. We noticed commonalities: the Buddhists, the Jains, the Mimamsas, the Sankhya, and what was the 5th? There was Buddhist, Jain, Mimamsa. Maybe it was 4 then, and Sankhya. Oh, am I missing something? Doesn't matter. We looked at the non-theistic arguments. We saw, some arguments were repeated about, why would God create? Why is there suffering? Which is still an argument. If you read what they call the new atheists, that is a big argument. Why? What kind of a creator would create a world where creatures are ripping each other apart, and insects are in the undergrowth, are tearing, spiders eating other creatures, and birds swooping down and devouring poor old worms, and the nature is brutal, and even amongst humans, what kind of a God would have created such an imperfect world? So we looked at those kinds of arguments, and how can God create without changing? That was important for the Buddhists. If he's eternal, he can't change, but to create, you have to change, right? If you supervise the world, you're aware of it, so your awareness is changing all the time. And even if you just wind it up and let it go like a clockmaker, you're still different before creation, you're different after creation, because you created, so some changes has taken place. So we looked at the change arguments and a variety of arguments like that. And then after that, we looked at God in yoga, where God is the object of meditation in the meditational traditions. So you fix your mind on God. But there's not so much talk of love of God. Those who seek the Atman, they're not seeking an actual relationship with God. They're actually just seeking their own Atman. In the Patanjali system, then Ishvara can give that. Okay, you want that, give that. So then we moved to the Gita. We saw some of that Patanjali stuff, yes, plenty of talk about realizing the Atman. But then we saw this higher principle about love of God starts getting stressed in the Gita, that's only one goal. It's only a partial goal to realize the Atman. And what about that? The higher Atman, the supreme Atman. So that it came out in the Gita, and then we ended up with this, so the Gita, offer everything to me, even if it doesn't have to be anything grand, even just a fruit, a flower, water. And then we ended up with the verse we revisited so many times today about ultimately, the highest possible thing is to just surrender completely to God. And even if it means giving up your Dharma. And then we went to the Bhagavatam. What does this Ishvara that we've engaged in all these different ways through these different lenses throughout this semester, what does that Ishvara look like in the Indian tradition when that Ishvara enters into the world of men and women, into our world? And we could have looked at Shiva, we could have looked at Brahma. Personally, my own scholarly work is dedicated to Krishna. My own heart is very much attracted to Krishna. So it makes sense for me to share what I know best and what I could, hopefully try to bring that alive a little bit better by dint of my own, relationship with that tradition. So we looked at the Bhagavatam. We saw Krishna entering and nature welcomed him. And then we looked at two different types of love of God, the motherly love, and now with the Gopis. So I hope that course sort of made sense. That's how I conceived of it. Getting a look at Ishvara in all these different traditions. The first time I've taught it, and I loved it personally, and I plan to teach it again. It's been wonderful. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry we didn't get a chance to get to know each other a little bit personally in the classroom. And there's nothing any of us could have done about that. But I suppose you saw a lot of me because of these videos. I didn't get to see you, so it's a little unbalanced in that way. And I love to meet students and I love to engage, and so that's been a challenge for all of us. All the best. I hope you do well in the final. You've certainly been an amazing. You've done much better, many of you, in the second quiz. So I anticipate you keep up that pressure. Don't mess up now with the final. If you've done better in the second quiz, you see you can do that. You can do that. Keep on doing that. Really pull it all out for the final. It's the same two review sheets plus this additional material of the Gita and the Bhagavatam, the stories. Surely they should be simple for you. Do well. Want you all to do well. Want you all to have a good experience, both in terms of being satisfied with the grade that you got, that you deserved. And I hope if you haven't done the reading, you haven't been getting good grades, then, you need to think about why that is and why you didn't put the work in that you should have done, and own that. But in any of the above, whether you really worked hard, whether you didn't, I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned something about how Ishvara is debated about, construed, manifests, and ultimately captures the hearts of his devotees in the Indian tradition. So that's it from me, my friends. Perhaps we'll see you in another course and make your acquaintance in the future. I wish you all the very best in the final and just in life. And I hope some of these teachings have struck a chord within you that will help you think about yourselves and what life is and who you are really and what the goals of life are. I mean, that's the purpose, partly the purpose of a university education, and certainly the purpose of religion and philosophy, to give us new lenses and ways of thinking about deeper things, not just, what job am I going to get? How, who am I going to marry? How am I going to make money? Those are also there. Those are dharmas that are also there. But the job of the humanities and certainly religion and philosophy is to engage in deeper level reflection about deeper level things, existential questions, metaphysical questions, philosophical questions. Unfortunately, that the humanities are decreasing in our day and age. There's more, more and more emphasis on the sciences, and the world is becoming more captured by economic, considerations and so forth. But I hope some of these teachings from these texts have made an impression on you. And what I really hope is that you'll continue your studies wherever you go in life. Bring your Gita, have a Gita on your shelf, have a Yoga Sutra on your shelf, have the Bhagavad Purana on your shelf. When life, especially when life challenges you, disappoints you, frustrates you, these texts can be our friends. They can be our guides. They can be they can help us. They can be our psychologists. They can help us process through lives, and they offer us truths. You have to decide whether those truths make sense to you, whether they resonate with you. But they're making claims about big ticket questions. what is life? What is there a God? Is there a soul? You know, and they also claim that the goal of life is the real goal of life is to ask these questions and pursue the implications of asking those questions. If we do believe in if we do believe in the Ishwar traditions, that there is a Bhagavan, there is an Ishwar, that there is an Atman, then these traditions will say, well, then that's what you should be using your life for, to seek them. And if you don't, and if you agree with the Buddhists and the Jains, and it's good that that's become clear to you, then maybe those arguments make more sense to you, then that's a good thing too. You maybe clarified things in the other direction. So that's what philosophy and religion is partly there to do, help us, give us tools and lenses to think more critically and carefully about our own beliefs and what we want, and how do we want to use this life, my friends? Because it won't be long before you have white hair like me, and it won't be long before I'll have even whiter hair. So we get one life. Well, maybe we'd get many lives, but at least we know we have this life for now. We don't even know if we'll be alive in 5 minutes, but for now we know we're alive, and surely it is appropriate to think carefully about what are we going to do with it. You know, why is it that we are rather than we are not? Why are we alive rather than there just being inanimate matter? And why is there matter at all, for that matter, in the first place? So these are the questions that philosophy and religion engage. And I hope this course has contributed to your ways of thinking about these questions. I wish you the very, very best from my heart, and I'm sorry we didn't get to meet. And perhaps we will at some point. And I offer you my namaskar, my namaha, and good luck. God bless, and I look forward to getting good results from the final, and perhaps meeting some of you in another course. Jai Shri Krishna.